Hey everyone, it's True Review right here with another top 10 list. Seems that I've got Elder Scrolls on the mind these days, which is strange as I haven't played them in a while. But while I absolutely adore those games, Oblivion in particular, it did occur to me that some of those missions in that game were utter shite. So with that in mind, here we have the top 10 worst quests in Oblivion. But before we begin, I'd like to make it clear that any missions from Oblivion's expansions also count on this list. So with that said, let's do it! Final Resting. Though many people like this quest, I'd argue that it's one of the most ill thought out missions in the entire Shivering expansion. So you go to Crucible and this guy comes up to you and says, "Hey, I want to talk to you, but not here, somewhere private. Meet me by the entrance to the city that's right next to some guards after dark." Like, seriously, look, here's the meeting place, and there's your guard. So this guy says that he wants you to kill someone for him, and that person turns out to be him himself. The catch is that he doesn't want to see it coming. He tells you to go about your business and make your move soon, and then immediately yells out for help because he thinks you're about to kill him. The next day, you'll find him overlooking the city. So you go up to him, and not once does it occur to him that this is where his life will end, while he stands up high on some steps while talking to the guy who he's contracted to murder him. You then boot him off the edge and kill him. Oh shit, another guard.
To put up a railing. That happens all the time.
People get booted off here all the time? Remind me to never buy property in Crucible. You then go and take the key off his body and take that to his house, which would have served as a better place to have had our first meeting for fuck's sake. And your reward for all of this is a not so great amulet that you may put on display in your house, or maybe just sell it, or whatever. Bored. Moving on. The Potato Snatcher. After going to this inn out in the middle of nowhere, you find a Khajiit who's having a problem. And I'm guessing that not much happens out here, considering that her biggest problem right now is that her potatoes have gone walkabout. Turns out that someone's been pinching them. So you go out and find an ogre. You kill that, and it turns out that this was the guy who took the potatoes. You take them back, and you're done.
You have them.
That's literally all there is to this quest. It's one of the most pointless and laziest quests that I've encountered in this game, and feels as if it was just added in there as filler. And it's out of the way too. You literally have no other reason to go to this inn other than for this quest. Some quests in this game are out of the way, but usually turn out to be awesome, like that mission on the bloated float. But this one requires you to go out of your way for one of the most disappointing quests imaginable, so here it is at number 9. Unfriendly Competition. This quest should just be called Waiting After Hours. You find out that this guy Thorinir is getting his stock through questionable means. You then have to wait until he closes up shop. That's your first bit of waiting. You then need to follow him around the back of his shop and listen in to a conversation behind a very small bush. Actually, I found that you can listen in out in the open practically next to them, and it still works. After that, you need to break into this other guy's house, but not while he's in there. So you wait outside for 12 hours. Second bit of waiting. Then, after breaking in, you take some shit from his basement and then go back to the shop owner, who's all like, "Damn, this is bad. Hard evidence and a ledger that tells us exactly what this guy's doing. Don't think this will be enough to hold up in court. Do you have any, like, actual evidence? Are you fucking kidding me? You're telling me that this isn't enough? I've had people imprisoned on less than this." So you go to a mausoleum and you're forced to kill this guy. You then take a shovel from there, and that turns out to be the last piece of evidence. Yeah, apparently finding reported missing valuables and a ledger that tells the reader that this guy's the culprit isn't enough to have him convicted, but a fucking shovel is. What a joke. Understanding Madness. Nope. Even after finishing this mission, I still don't understand Madness. This mission annoys me, mainly when you consider that the Shivering Isles has so many great quests. But this one is made up of two parts. One where you're on a timer to get to the end of a dungeon as quickly as possible before you start jonesing from Feldew withdrawal, and another where you take on the role of the most ineffectual Inquisitor ever. Every time you approach someone, the same thing happens. You're a traitor, aren't you? No, I'm not involved, I swear! I don't care! Her dear, unleash the hounds! Ah, no hounds. Okay, I'm involved, but it wasn't me. Go to this person. So you go to this person, and it's the same thing. You then have to wait for 12 hours and eavesdrop on a conversation, then ask this new person, and then she tells you to go to the mastermind behind the plot, who openly fucking admits it. You then go back to the palace and watch her get executed in the most unsatisfying way possible. And yes, I know that the Lady of Paranoia is a sub-quest in Understanding Madness, but they all come under it, and Thaden's mission also sucked, so here they are. Allies for Bruma! Repetition and long-winded missions can turn people off of any game, and for some reason Oblivion is quite good at doing this. So Bruma is about to have a huge Oblivion gate open right outside of town for good behaviour, and the Countess is all like, "F that, we need support, go ask everyone." What this means is that you need to ask all of the other rulers of each city and Chancellor Akoto to send Bruma aid. It turns out that all the other towns and cities really couldn't give a shit about Bruma, or anyone else now that I think about it. Akoto pretty much tells you to jog on. Yeah, the guy responsible for acting as the Empire's administrative head while they find a new emperor tells you that he can't do anything to prevent one of his cities from getting demolished, while all the other counts and countesses tell you that until the very small Oblivion gate outside of their own town that could be closed by a four-man team is taken out of the running, then they won't send anyone. But even after closing the gate, the best they can send Bruma is like 3 guys. Is that literally all the manpower you have to spare? Because if I broke a law in your city, I'd know for sure that within 2 seconds of it happening, a guard will be telling me that I'm criminal scum. They seem to come out of the woodwork in these places, and yet you're telling me that you can only spare 3, sometimes only 2 people? And as said in one of my previous videos, once you've been to Oblivion once, you've seen it in its entirety. But you'd better get used to doing it 6 times if you want all of those allies you think to begin with. But it turns out that you don't even need to do this mission, because if you don't do it, then Bruma just sends their own troops. Wait, that must mean that I can commit crimes in the town, right?
Have pity.
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law in my...
Mambo number 5.
Dagon Shrine! You cannot escape the Master's vigilance! You cannot escape the Master's vigilance! You cannot escape the Master's vigilance. Oh my bad, I seem to have had a mental breakdown there. This mission just turns into a clusterfuck the moment you show up. Following on from another really crap mission that we may find out about later on in this list, in this one, you're after the head of the Mythic Dawn, Mankar Cameron. You try to bluff your way in, but after being asked to give up your stuff, and telling them to get stuffed in turn, a massive fight breaks out. You then go and retrieve the Mysterium Xarxes, and then you need to flee. However, that's going to be a problem because you cannot escape the Master's vigilance. Don't believe me? Watch this.
You cannot escape the Master's vigilance.
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 Escape the Master's vigilance.
Lord!
You cannot escape the Master's vigilance.
You cannot escape the Master's vigilance.
There's even a bonus objective here where you have to get this guy out in one piece as well. Doing so will earn you some magic levels later on and should be done if possible, but even then, trying to keep him protected from the Master's vigilance is harder than it sounds, because he just fucking takes off, throwing all caution to the wind. Oh, see you later then. Join the Mages Guild!
Hello there.
The Mages Guild missions are kind of average in Oblivion if I'm honest. Not bad, but not great. But it didn't help that it started off on a really dull and long-winded note. It's sort of like Allies for Bruma, but with less fighting. In order to get into the Arcane University, which is where all of your main Mages Guild quests are given, you first need to get recommendations from all of the other towns in Cyrodiil. A total of 7 to be exact. And at least half of these are just your bog standard fetch and carry missions. Go to a ruin and find an amulet, go to an inn, walk down a road and kill a person, go to a cave and bring someone back. And sure, this all adds up to technically 7 separate missions, but all you want to do is gain access to the Arcane University. Yet the Mages Guild is forcing you to jump through hoops for them in order to get in. What's worse, at least for me, is that this is supposed to be magic-related stuff. And it's not. The Mages Guild should be sending me on missions that require the use of magic to complete. Maybe even learn several new spells which could come in handy for later missions. But no, they just want a mercenary like everyone else in this Imperial province, and it doesn't set you up for later, or serve to show you what the Mages Guild is all about, other than they have problems like everyone else and everything can be solved with a sword. It's just in this case, you have to solve their problems 7 times over before you can even think about getting into university. At least there's no tuition fees, but if you're going to ask me what the title of my dissertation will be, then I'm going to go with How I Didn't Use Magic to Get into the Mages Guild. Path of Dawn! Immediately taking place before the Dagon Shrine mission, this one is even worse. This mission primarily involves waiting and following. So you meet up with Boris in the Elven Garden district, and he tells you to follow a guy who's following him. It turns out this guy was an agent for the Mythic Dawn, and he happens to have a copy of the commentaries on him, but only book 1 of 4. So you go to the Arcane University's entrance, and no further because you're still doing the recommendation quests, and this girl gives you book 2. She sends you to Fintius at the market who has book 3, but it's not for you. You then talk to the guy who buys it and guilt trip him into handing it over. Then comes the worst part of the mission. You go back to Boris, and then you have to follow him for what feels like fucking forever, as he walks slowly through the Imperial sewers. Then you've got to kill some cultists, and after getting book 4, it's back to the Arcane University, where you have to wait about 2 days, 2 fucking days, for your contact to work out that the hidden message is the first letter of every chapter put together. That's the oldest trick in the book, and yet it took you 2 days to figure it out? And then you've got to go to the gardens outside the palace at a very specific time and look for a tomb, and only then will you have completed the quest. This quest deliberately wastes your time with waiting and following, and I don't even know why Boris had to be at that meeting anyway. Seeking your roots. Probably the most hated quest of them all for most players, this mission seems to never end. After finding a strange plant called Nernroot, you take it to Sinderian, who tells you that he can make a potent potion out of it if you bring him 10 samples of the stuff. That's easier said than done, as it's quite rare. So you eventually come back with 10 samples. He gives you a shit potion for it. He then asks for 20 samples. Mate, are you having a laugh? 10 was hard. 20 is going to take forever. But after forever later, you come back with 20 samples, and all you have to show for it is a slightly less shit potion. Now bring me 30 samples. What the fuck? Next you'll be asking me for 40 samples. You're gonna ask for 40 samples next time, aren't you? So in order to complete this quest, you need to find a grand total of 100 samples of Nernroot. This is an actual quest, mind you, and it's one that most players don't even bother with, and there's a very good reason for that. Another one bites the dust. Another one bites the dust. Azani Blackheart! This quest is the epitome of what I hate in video games. This mission is a shining example of how not to do it. It's given to you by Modron Orion as part of the Fighters Guild. Some guy's being a bad boy by setting up a questionable rival company in the south of Cyrodiil, and it's up to us to figure out what's going on. So you meet Orion at an abandoned ruin and take a look around. Apart from some rats and maybe a mud crab, there's nothing here, meaning that it was a wasted trip. But then Orion goes, "Wait! No, it's not here! I meant to say it's up the road. But don't worry, I know the way. Follow me." So then he starts walking off towards this new place at the slowest pace he can manage. The problem here is that even if you know where you're going, you need this guy with you. So if you just dash off ahead, he just stops and stands there, waiting for you to return, meaning your only option is to slowly follow behind him and pray that you haven't expired from boredom by the time you get there. Now tell me honestly, is this fun? Do people like doing this in video games? We have to closely follow a slow person for a set amount of time and not go off and explore. I can't think of any other way to ruin the experience in something like Elder Scrolls than by having to follow someone as slowly as you can without going off to do your own stuff. This series is about role-playing and doing whatever you want, and it blows my mind that something as contradictory as this could exist in this game. Whoever came up with this quest as an idea is a sick, twisted degenerate who hates gamers. And even when you do get to this other place, it's just your standard ruin escapade. Nothing exciting, just your run-of-the-mill dungeon. It's dull and tedious in a world that's full of wonder and awe, and that's why the Azani Blackheart mission comes in at number 1 on this list. And that's all we have time for, but if you're a sick, twisted degenerate who hates gamers, then like this video and subscribe to this channel. Don't forget that I'm on Twitter under my channel name, where you can find out what video is next and all of the goings on, and I'm also on Patreon if you'd like to support this channel further. See ya!